One of my experiences was in 10 years ago, I implemented BCM at a global telecommunications company in 26 countries. And what I found was not only was it very important to understand what resilience means and to plan it and test it, but to train people. At that community, we created a community of excellence of BCM practitioners who met once a month and talked about, I took an agile approach to this, we talked about their tops and flops. So I heard about best and worst practices around the world in BCM. And that was just really very much an eye-opener for me. And what I realized was it was so important to socialize. We get to the cultural aspect of this. It's to really socialize what is required of people and then to test it. So that when something happens that wasn't even in a risk assessment, people have already been testing and regularly meeting, and people know who would manage the situation, who to call, and how to escalate, so that when it did happen, it wasn't expected. They would handle it the same way they handled all the other things that they tested. So that was a really interesting experience that I had. Okay, then let's do a transition. Resilience is one thing, but compliance is another. And in practice, they don't always where do compliance obligations and real-world cyber resilience diverge, and how can organizations close that gap? Anybody want to jump in on that one?
Well, I think that's a real hard question because, at least as I see it, our regulation, of course, it makes sense to start. I see the problem with regulation. I know not exactly the question right now, but is how is a real union involved in AI tech. If I would found a startup right now in the financial industry, I would go to the United States or to Dubai. I don't have the DORA. If I would have a startup, I would go to okay, let's say with Dubai, Singapore, United States. Just to, so I think it's a very difficult thing to get these regulations involved. So now to switch back, how do we manage it well to make it short? We don't really have a choice. We have to apply to the regulations as a thing. I see there are some other financial institutes. I think ING, you really have to do. I give a thumbs up to them. You didn't see it. So we don't have any other choice. And I have to say, it eats up a lot of resources. And the only chance we have is to still use a pragmatic way to fulfill it with the available resources. And that's all there is to it.
Exactly, it's always technical knowledge, right? Exactly. And when I see organizations mistaking compliance for security, I'd like to hear both of you talk about that, but it's really a great point. Go ahead.
So, talking about compliance and talking about cybersecurity are two different things. And they can match, they can be overlapping, but they do not need to. I think the best example as a consultancy we've had when we ran an internal audit was, okay, there's on the compliance sheet, like in the ISMS framework, it's asked for, do you have firewalling? Do you have a firewall? And the customer said, yes, we do. Look, here's the receipt. We bought it. Yeah. And where is it? Oh, it's in the cupboard. So it wasn't even running. It wasn't even in the systems. They bought it. They had a receipt, so they were compliant. And a former auditor actually rated that as compliance because they didn't ask the next question. They didn't really check whether it was in place. So you can be compliant without being cyber secure. If you have proper cybersecurity, compliance usually isn't that far away. It feels like it because, especially now, those who suffer under DORA and NIS2 and all the other regulations, it's a lot of documentation which we techie people don't like. I understand it's not fun, but there are tools out there, people there who will help. But generally, if you have a good cybersecurity posture, you are much closer to compliance than the other way around. Now, I think people somehow mistake is that if you have a good cybersecurity posture, compliance can't help. And this is why I said I don't hate it, because you can leverage it. These compliance chiefs, having processes, having management of it, make sure that you are not just cyber secure at one certain point in time when you install these systems, but that you have a good view on your cybersecurity, a transparency, a visibility, that you have actual knowledge about what is happening at every given specific point in time, and not just in the moment you built it, but also in the months after, during this reviewing process. And if you have people looking out for each other because they're forced to, by trainings, by documentation, to think about, is it still updated? Is my firewall still in place? It's still doing what it's supposed to do? Then we have real cybersecurity. So I think we need the compliance in order to rethink what we've done all the time.
Thank you so much. And I really look forward to also what Chantal has to say about this topic, maybe with AI in the mix.
I want to start without AI in the mix. Compliance gives, as Swantje said, like it gives the basis where you can build up on, which standardizes a lot of things, which makes a lot of things easier. The problem is that a lot of companies are not startups. They are organically grown 50, 100, 200-year-old companies with their processes, or at least their habits, whatever. And it's then just really intense to start documenting stuff that you kind of have but don't have. The difference between security and compliance, from my point of view, if you do a proper risk management and really look at the risk, and not from the legal point, but from the risk point, and you really cover the risk and have like good risk management, then you should be technically compliant. But then again, it's not as easy. And right now, there is a lot of overhead in compliance. By the way, Japan doesn't have any regulations regarding AI too, so that's a good starting point too. There is a lot of overhead, and we won't be able to manage all the overhead. And there is a lot of research going on how to automate GRC, and that's great. Like at one point in time, I'm a big advocate of bug bounty, because I think DORA requests the pen testing, and that's great, but how much do you do it once a year or whatever, right? So it doesn't give you a real-time idea of how your posture really is. So if you go into bug bounty, you have, now AI comes, if we do have layoffs, as is we think we'll have, there is a lot of young people, a lot of people that actually are not stupid, laid off. And if they start attacking, you better have them on the white hat side than on the black hat side. So bug bounty can actually really improve your posture and give you a real-time idea about your posture. So I like also for AI,